everyone. I'm Jin again. It's my great honor to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Ingrid Sanchez TAPIA, Global Lead on Climate Change and Education at UNICEF and CEO of Planet-Wide Development. Dr. TAPIA is a leading expert in international educational cooperation, providing policy advice to the United Nations and national governments on climate, education, and gender issues. She has designed the pioneer programs in girls' environmental education, digital learning, and interdisciplinary education. Has spearheaded educational reforms across Latin America, the Middle East, and North Africa. She is also published the author and has served as a professor at universities in both the United States and Europe. We will have a 10-minute Q&A session after her presentation. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ingrid Sanchez TAPIA with a big round of applause.
Good morning. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you today at the International Congress of Education in Botanic Gardens. My name, as I was kindly introduced, is Dr. Ingrid Sanchez TAPIA, and I'm here to talk today about something that is very close to my heart and I don't have enough opportunities to talk about, and it's how botanic gardens, those living repositories of biodiversity, can serve as catalyst for one of the most powerful forces we have in climate action, and that is young people. The title of this plenary speech is Cultivating Voices, or Young Voices, because this is what we must do. Listen to them, facilitate their empowerment, and work with them to reimagine the role that botanic gardens can play in transforming our future in a climate change world. So let's start with discussing this urgent intersection of climate change and youth. Climate change is no longer a distant threat. It's a lived reality for all of us and for millions of children and young people all over the world, whose reality has been forever changed by climate events. More frequent and intense extreme events and disasters are reversing hard-won development gains and pushing millions deeper into poverty, out of schools, and cutting them off from basic services. Young people are disproportionately affected, particularly those in marginalized and vulnerable contexts. Yet, they are not just victims. They are, and they can be, change makers and visionaries. As the largest generation in human history, youth are emerging as one of the most powerful assets in the pursuit of a sustainable future. In 2019 alone, an estimated 7.6 million young people joined climate strikes inspired by youth activism. Their growing engagement is driven by their daily experience. Heat waves, floods, droughts, the evidence is everywhere and is mounting. In 2024, last year, our planet officially experienced its warmest year on record, surpassing all previous records since modern record keeping since it began. 2024 was also the first year to exceed the 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. We now know that a child born in 2021 is projected to live through 7 times as many heat waves, nearly 3 times as many droughts, and twice as many wildfires as their grandparents. And young people know it. A global UNDP poll of 1.2 million young people across 50 countries found that 2 in 3 youth aged 14 to 18 believe climate change is now a global emergency. Children and young people are raising their voices in international forums, building resilience in their communities, launching adaptation projects, and pioneering green innovations. They are not only demanding action, but they are offering solutions. For Botanic Gardens, engaging young people is not optional. It is essential to play a key role in building climate resilience, resilience that lasts, and to engage new generations in preserving biodiversity. So we need to see youth as key stakeholders in climate action. As I just said, we are witnessing the largest generation of young people in human history. We're talking about 1.9 billion between the ages of 10 to 24. They are informed, they are connected, they are already shaping policies, creating technologies, and building climate resilience at community level where they are. Botanic Gardens must recognize this. We must transition from educators to co-creators in a movement powered by youth agency, creativity, and leadership. Because young people are not just only impacted by climate change, they are at the core of driving local climate adaptation. They are creating partnerships, contributing to policy, offering technological and entrepreneurial solutions to local and global problems. Youth are agents of change, enablers of adaptation, and builders of long-term resilience. Their motivations are grounded in their lived experience and in their values: leadership, awareness, and open-mindedness. These qualities position them to act with purpose and urgency. There is evidence from projects financed by the Adaptation Fund that investments in youth capacity building yield long-term benefits. These benefits do more than raising awareness. They shift culture, they embed sustainable values, and inspire intergenerational cooperation. It's time we stop seeing youth as beneficiaries or simply as visitors of gardens. We need to start partnering with them as equal stewards of our planet's future. But to truly catalyze change, these experiences in Botanic Gardens must be connected to formal education systems. Across the globe, we see gardens aligning with national curricula, hosting teacher trainings, co-developing materials that bridge science with civic responsibility. And this integration ensures that learning in the Botanic Gardens reinforces and enhances what is learned in the classroom. But equally important is accessibility. Gardens must open their gates wider, physically and socially. Programs must reach children in rural areas, urban peripheries, and underserved communities. Inclusion is not just an ethical imperative. It is essential for cultivating a generation of diverse, empowered climate leaders. Botanic Gardens can provide platforms for youth leadership, spaces where young people design and lead projects, propose solutions, and collaborate with scientists and policymakers. From hackathons to school clubs, innovation labs, these platforms validate youth contributions and transform passive learning into co-creation. Let us reimagine gardens not only as sanctuaries of biodiversity, but also as crucibles for innovation, equity, and youth-led climate resilience. So today, I am going to share 4 different, but I think that's my next slide. Yep. I'm going to share 4 different approaches to engaging children and youth in climate action. The first example comes from a collaboration between UNICEF and the Skopje Garden in North Macedonia, where we'll see the power of partnerships for youth-led climate action. The second example comes from the Palmetum in Tenerife, Spain. Here, we'll explore how the Palmetum is inspiring young people through innovation and inclusion and moving local government to take in action. Third, I'll share the example of the Botanic Garden in Medellin, Colombia, where reaching the most remote and marginalized children and young people where they are has become a central tenet to their mission. Which is remarkable is that this is an urban space. This is a garden in one of the largest cities of the country with 3 million people, yet they are truly committed to reaching the most remote children and youth. And finally, I'll walk you through a UNICEF's initiative in Tanzania, where local small botanic gardens are lending their expertise to catalyze children-led change in urban and rural schools. Each of these studies reveal how gardens are being reimagined, not just as sites of conservation, which is very important, but also as engines of children and youth-led climate action. So let's start with Skopje in North Macedonia. Here stands a remarkable institution. This botanic garden was established in 1948 and covers 11 hectares. It houses over 400 tree and shrub species. Through decades of challenges, including lack of funding and staffing, it has endured and evolved. Recent renovations include new greenhouses, educational spaces, and medicinal plant facilities that have reinvigorated its mission. With a clear strategic plan for development, this garden is re-emerging as a center for education, research, biodiversity, and conservation. With support from UNICEF, the Skopje Botanic Garden has become part of the National Experiential Learning Network. This collaboration has allowed meaningful connections with other public institutions, enabling this garden to improve its access to resources and ideas for connecting climate and STEM with hands-on inclusive education. Making climate action and biodiversity learning accessible for everyone, but particularly for marginalized populations and children and young people in rural communities, is also at the core of this example that I'm sharing with you today. Over 5,500 students have participated in this initiative in the last couple of years, transforming the Botanic Garden into a dynamic and accessible space for youth engagement and innovation. So let's talk about the Experiential Learning Network and how this Botanic Garden has greatly benefited and revitalized from purposeful partnerships. So this experiential network is a national initiative committed to advancing environmental education in bold, inclusive, and lasting ways. The first objective of the network has been to lay strong foundations for consistent and relevant climate education. This means more than hosting one-time workshops, and we see that a lot as part of the programming of Botanic Gardens. They have resignified how they do education by embedding climate change into national curricula, ensuring that every child, regardless of geography or background, receives age-appropriate, science-based environmental education through their schooling experiences. To make this possible, the program has already trained over 1,000 teachers, equipping them with the knowledge, tools, and confidence to deliver this content. Play-based learning is at the core of their approach, using games, hands-on activities, real-life scenarios to stimulate understanding and spark imagination. But this isn't just about learning what climate change is. It is about practicing how to respond. It's about taking action. New venues for learning, like mobile science labs and outreach gardens, are taking education out of the classroom and into communities. And critically, the network promotes youth-led innovation and entrepreneurship, encouraging young people to design climate solutions tailored to their local context. In Skopje and beyond, youth aren't just learning about climate change. They are preparing to lead their communities through it. This is the power of experiential education, rooted in relevance, fueled by creativity, and driven by the next generation. So one of the most exciting developments emerging from this network in North Macedonia is the creation of the Science Learning Network. This is a powerful model of collaboration across public institutions, civil society, and education stakeholders. Born out of the momentum of the Experiential Learning Network, the Science Learning Network brings together 5 national institutions: science museums, research centers, environmental organizations, with a shared goal: to support school learning and build students' practical skills in science and environmental stewardship. Rather than working in silos, these institutions have developed a joint educational program aligned with the national curriculum and verified by the Bureau for Development of Education. The focus is not just on delivering knowledge, but on how it is delivered through real-world, hands-on experiences that engage students both inside and outside the classroom. And the educators at the Botanic Gardens are especially best placed to take this approach. Initial pilots of this initiative in the Skopje Botanic Garden have reached so far this year 100 students, and is projected to reach thousands of students in the coming years across 5 locations. But what's perhaps most remarkable about this example is the way this network is expanding beyond schools. Institutions like the Education Center Negribo, the Hydrobiology Institute, and the National Park Kalinchika have joined forces to reach youth through extracurricular and community programs. And the Skopje Botanic Garden has been leading this initiative. These efforts are reviving government knowledge centers and creating demand for more institutions to join. This is what systemic change looks like: a growing alliance of science educators, environmental champions, public institutions working together for opening new doors for young people. Through this Science Learning Network, we're seeing how Botanic Gardens and their partners can move from isolated impact into collective transformation, making climate action accessible, experiential, and deeply rooted in community. So one of the interesting outcomes that came out of really working with young people and supporting young people is this initiative that I will tell you about, Biohack My World. When we invest in young people's education, when we believe in their vision, we enable their leadership, transformative ideas take root. This is one shining example, the Biohack My World, a youth-led initiative out of the Skopje Garden in North Macedonia that recently won the Green Shark Challenge, a global competition launched by UNDP and UNICEF to spark innovative, scalable solutions to the climate crisis. The winning idea emerged from this vibrant ecosystem of education, mentorship, and opportunity nurtured by the Skopje Botanic Garden and its partners. through hands-on programs with science teachers, industry professionals, national science caravans, and school-based workshops, young people were not just invited to learn, they were empowered to lead, and that's an important difference. What was the result? It was this biohacking laboratory located in the State High School for Chemistry in Skopje that engages students, teachers, and entrepreneurs in transforming bio-waste, which accounts for nearly 45 or 46% of the country's total waste. The lab fosters real-world skills in biotechnology, waste valorization, and circular economy models. And it's mobile, meaning that it brings tools and experiments to communities across North Macedonia, across the whole country. The initiative was made possible by a deliberate investment in youth innovation and entrepreneurship, incubation programs, startup mentorships, and opportunities to develop and test viable green products in partnership with local companies. What made the difference was building public demand and enabling youth participation, creating a space, support, and visibility for young people to solve problems that matter to them and their communities. And that's very important. Young people know what's important to them, what's relevant for their communities, and when given the tools and the space, they will be ready to lead. So Biohack My World, is more than a lab. It has become a youth-led model of climate action that is practical, inclusive, and scalable. And it reminds us what becomes possible when we shift from outreach to ownership. This is my next, yeah. So then something else that is special and that has happened through this network that the Skopje Botanic Garden is now connected to is further innovation. The Botanic Garden is now hosting hackathons, providing space, providing resources for young people. So in hosting these Green Shark challenges, students have developed solutions that are also helping the Botanic Garden itself. So they are young people learning about endemic Macedonian flora and connecting the general public with this knowledge. They are creating mobile apps, websites, public engagement strategies to showcase local plants such as the Alger violet or the Jeggelija. Pardon my pronunciation, I don't speak North Macedonian. But I believe it translates into the naked man plant, that is a local endemic plant. The most recent team that won the competition received 120,000 dinars to implement their mobile app with interactive features, educational quizzes, and virtual tours, bridging digital and physical learning and helping the Botanic Garden outreach to the community. So what's inspiring here is not just the innovation, but the transformation. Once in this repair, this garden now supports youth-led technology, public science communication, and a new culture of climate leadership in North Macedonia. This is the power of reinvesting in partnership that supports young people engagement. When we restore ecosystems and at the same time we elevate youth, we regenerate possibility. This is what happens when young people are not just invited to the Botanic Gardens, but entrusted with creating solutions for real social and environmental challenges that are important to them, that they are experiencing in their day-to-day lives. So now with this, let's go from North Macedonia to Tenerife, Spain, to this example of the palmetum, that it was once a garbage dump that has been transformed into Europe's largest palm collection. It's called the palmetum again. And this is such a special example. It's more than a landscape, it's a statement. It welcomes tourists, school children, migrant youth. It teaches them about biodiversity, water conservation, and how ecosystems help islands adapt to climate change. And most importantly, it demonstrates how physical transformation of the space of ecosystems can mirror and can drive social transformation. So these are some interesting photos of the before and after. The palmettum is a testament to what vision, partnership, and bold design can achieve. What you see on the top photo is a mountain of waste, 42 meters high, spread across 12 hectares. This former municipal dump has been completely transformed. Today, it's home to Europe's largest collection of palm species and what is believed to be the most extensive botanical collection of tropical island palms in the world. In just over a decade, since opening to the public, the palmettum has welcomed more than 500,000 visitors, with around 250 people walking its grounds each day. But it's more than just a popular tourist destination, and you can check it in TripAdvisor, like it's really a popular tourist destination. But it's way more than that. It's a hub for plant conservation, urban renewal, and climate education. Here, students from across Spain and beyond come to explore how biodiversity thrives in restored landscapes. Through educational programs tailored to local schools and international partnerships, the palmettum serves as a living classroom for children, migrant youth, and future environmental leaders. What makes it truly unique is its integration of urban design, renewable energy, and climate-smart infrastructure. It stands as a model of sustainable city planning, demonstrating how repurposed land can drive ecological restoration, support education, and inspire civic pride in the local population. From garbage to garden, the palmettum is not only regenerating nature, but is helping transform how young people engage with climate, culture, and community. It reminds us that sustainable futures can be designed and that inclusion can be built into every pathway. So beyond this extraordinary transformation and all the international plant collections of the palmettum is playing a vital role in the heart of Tenerife's society and communities. This garden is improving social cohesion by becoming a space where biodiversity and conservation intersect with equity, accessibility, and opportunity. Through careful design programs, it is engaging school children, youth with disabilities, and migrant families, including many young people from Africa who are navigating their new lives in Spain. These are not passive activities. The palmettum's initiatives are grounded in knowledge mobilization, making sustainability tangible, inclusive, and relevant. Whether it's through sensory garden walks, adapted educational tools, or guided learning experiences, the palmettum ensures that everyone has a place in climate education, regardless of their background or ability. Migrant youth, children with disabilities, and students of all backgrounds explore sustainability through immersive learning experiences. And importantly, the palmettum is also nurturing green job pathways. It provides training and practical exposure to young people exploring careers in environmental fields, from horticulture to urban landscaping and sustainable tourism to conservation science. By linking biodiversity education with employability, the palmettum is not only protecting species, but is also protecting species and expanding life chances. It shows us that climate action must also be social action, and that inclusion is not an add-on. It's essential to the resilience that we're trying to build. In Tenerife, we see how a botanic garden can be a platform for learning, belonging, and economic opportunity, especially for those often left at the margins. So, at the Palmettum, like the other examples that I have shared today, education doesn't stop with school visits. Through public-private partnerships, the Palmettum and partner organizations train youth in urban horticulture, organic agriculture, and agripreneurship. These training programs are not only educational, but also respond directly to one of the most urgent social challenges in Spain, youth unemployment. Aligned with the Sustainable Development Goal 8, these efforts promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. Unemployment, especially among young people, has become a defining issue in Spain. The legacy of economic crises and the proliferation of precarious jobs have deepened inequality and changed the face of poverty and social exclusion. And this is not exclusive to Spain. We have seen this across middle and lower income countries. So this example is very relevant. In response, the Palmettum's programs aim to reduce youth unemployment by creating real opportunities for green jobs and upward mobility. By linking sustainable education with economic opportunity, these initiatives not only help the planet, but they help young people thrive. And now, we're continuing our journey. Now, let's move from Tenerife and Canarias on a journey to Latin America, to the vibrant city and resilient city of Medellin in Colombia. Here, the Botanic Garden is redefining what it means to reach the last mile. Through its education and outreach program, the garden is taking free, high-quality climate education, workshops, engagement activities directly to low-income and rural communities, many of which are hours away from the nearest formal learning spaces. Workshops cover practical topics such as biopesticides, biofertilizers, climate adaptation, and soil conservation. These are, however, not abstract concepts. These are tools for local action, adapted to the everyday realities of the children, families, and youth who attend and participate in these activities. What sets Medellin apart is the structure behind this effort. Their educational work is organized across 6 thematic lines that you can see there in the slide: urban agriculture and food security, climate change, regenerative cultures, traditional knowledge, ecology and territory, and sustainable lifestyles. The rich framework allows the garden to integrate science, heritage, and daily life, making climate education deeply personal and culturally rooted. And perhaps most impressive of all is the intentional partnerships that they have built. By engaging private sector allies, both locally and nationally, these gardens secure sustainable funding that fuels their mission. This support allows educators to travel long distances, sometimes 6 hours or more, to bring knowledge, seeds, and hope to youth who might otherwise be excluded from environmental education entirely. In Medellin, we see what's possible when a garden not only opens its gates, but opens pathways to equity and empowerment beyond its walls. So let's take a closer look at the social environmental program of this botanic garden and what makes it a powerful example of community-centered climate action. This program is built on 4 strong pillars, each one designed to empower local communities and young leaders in shaping their own environmental future. First, we have the community in the garden in the community. This pillar focuses on training youth and community leaders in vital topics like environmental impact assessments, urban forest management, and strategies to engage decision makers. It equips local actors not only with technical knowledge, but with the confidence and skills to advocate for a change in their own neighborhoods. The second pillar is social participation in research projects. Here, young people are not just learners. They are knowledge mobilizers, working alongside scientists to bring research back into their communities. This kind of participatory science transforms data into dialogue and learning into leadership. And that's something we all must strive for. The third pillar is the garden support to Medellin's Science and Technology District. And this is very important because this component has been essential for fundraising and very successful fundraising for the garden and for supporting their education programs. So through this, in this urban innovation zone, youth take part in urban forestry and environmental education workshops, building a culture of green innovation right at the heart of the city. So this pillar and the action of youth has become a key demonstration of value for city authorities and private sector partners, since all these communities and young people are very visible in the city, and all their efforts of urban sustainability become very visible. And those of you who have visited this city know how green and innovative it is, and it's mainly because of these youth-led initiatives. So by showcasing how botanic gardens can contribute to urban sustainability goals, the engagement and commitment of private sector is sustained. And finally, community mobilization for tree planting and soil reforestation is the fourth pillar. And this work reaches remote rural areas where advanced soil restoration techniques are urgently needed to secure food systems and climate resilience. So you see this dual role, what happens in urban spaces, what happens in rural, remote places. So together, these four pillars make the Medellin Botanic Garden a living laboratory, not just for the biodiversity, but for justice, inclusion, and transformation. So they don't stop there. They also partner with public schools, and many of you do in your institutions. So the Medellin Botanic Garden is not limited to community outreach. It is deeply rooted in long-term partnerships with public schools, and that's also something that adds value. At the garden itself, children and youth participate in guided tours, hands-on workshops, and place-based learning experiences that connect biodiversity conservation with real-life challenges. And I think many of you can relate to this. This is similar to the programs you may run in your institutions, in your botanic gardens. Students learn by doing, by exploring ecosystems, participating in classroom-linked projects, and engaging with flora in a way that brings science to life. So we can all agree to those approaches. Again, many of you are working along these same lines. But what makes this program remarkable is its flexibility and intentional design. Custom-tailored experiences are developed specifically for rural schools, ensuring that even the most remote learners feel seen, included, and empowered. But they don't stop there. The garden also reaches students where they are, directly in their schools. By working around bureaucratic hurdles and minimizing cost for teachers, the Medellin Botanic Garden makes it easier for educators to integrate environmental learning into the school day. For those of you who have ever been teachers, you may know how difficult, how bureaucratic, and all the paperwork that a teacher needs to fill to take the students for a few hours to a botanic garden. And that hinders the reach out. So botanic gardens as this one are saving this headache to teachers and reaching them where they are. So this two-way model brings schools into the garden and bring the garden into schools, demonstrating what true partnership looks like. It's inclusive, adaptable, and driven by a shared vision that every child, no matter where they live, should have access to climate education and tools to shape a greener future. And now, and I don't know if this is a video, but I'm not sure if it will work. Probably not, but I will describe here what happens. And it's that the Medellin Botanic Garden extends far beyond the schools and the city limits. Its mobile teams deliver activities and climate knowledge to schools and communities across the state where it is located. It's called Antioquia. Through educational kits, teacher training, and youth-led forestry projects, climate action becomes real and empowering even in the most remote areas. This is outreach that goes the distance quite literally. Garden staff reach the 26 municipalities of the state, sometimes traveling by horseback, crossing rivers, navigating rough terrain, all to ensure that young people, especially those geographically cut off from services, have access to horticultural education and environmental learning. Over 130,000 participants benefit annually from this outreach. It's a commitment not just to biodiversity, but to equity and inclusion, bringing science, sustainability, and hope to communities often left behind, and to young people and children with very limited access to education and environmental learning. So let's take a closer look to what it looks like, this approach in a single community. So these are some photos of what happens in Comuna 4. This is community number 4, they are numbered. And this is one of Medellin's most underserved urban districts. The Botanic Garden launched a local engagement initiative that has grown into a vibrant hub of social and ecological action. What started in 2022 with just 864 participants has expanded rapidly to 1,116 in 2023, and more than doubling to 3,045 participants in 2024. We're almost tripling. In just 3 years, over 5,000 people have taken part in this initiative. It's all young people. And at its core is youth-led transformation. It's young people engaging more young people and working together. This program includes knowledge-sharing meetings, hands-on learning experiences, and guiding reflection workshops that center on the needs and strengths of the community. Young people lead the interventions to improve public space, planting trees, creating green corridors, reclaiming underutilized areas as safe, vibrant places for everyone. And that's supported by the staff of the Botanic Garden with all their technical expertise that is transferred to youth so that they can take action in their own terms. So then what's really special is that now these young people are celebrating, are utilizing the biodiversity that surrounds them, that goes often unnoticed, often uncelebrated. So that's a full personal and cultural change. So we see how, by engaging young people, these efforts ripple outward. From this example in Community 4 alone, the approach has inspired similar initiatives that have now reached over 130,000 people in rural communities, many of them previously beyond the reach of traditional environmental education programs and botanic gardens. This is the power of youth-led action, where deep roots in one community can create lasting change across an entire region. And now, with this, we'll move to my last example for today. So let's now travel to East Africa, to Tanzania, where children and young people are emerging as powerful advocates for climate resilience. Tanzania, like many countries, is facing the harsh realities of climate change, increased heat waves, torrential rains, and severe flooding that affects lives, livelihoods, and learning. We see often closed schools because of these climate events. But amidst this challenge, a groundswell of youth energy and determination is rising. A 2023 survey led by UNICEF of 12,000 Tanzanian youth revealed some powerful findings. 70% of the survey youth believe their actions can influence climate policy. 80% say climate education is essential. That's something they want and demand. Yet, 30% report that they lack the relevant skills to act and access to climate and environmental education. This gap between motivation and means is exactly where Botanic Gardens can step in. While the national curriculum in Tanzania is being revised to integrate climate change in a more purposeful way, this is a process that takes time. So in the meantime, the school-based climate action clubs supported by local botanic gardens are in implementation. These clubs offer practical, youth-led platforms to build knowledge, skills, and real-world solutions. Botanical gardens across Tanzania have partnered with the schools to make these clubs flourish. They bring climate concepts to life through gardens, composting, pollinator education, and water conservation. And what's the result? The result is a network of children all across the country, not only learning about climate change, but leading their response to it in their own communities. In Tanzania, we see a model of what can happen when you harness young people's energy and give them the tools to act. It's a story of resilience, empowerment, growing from the ground up. The model that I'm describing here is not, and let me go to the next slide, is not working in isolation. So Botanic Gardens here are partnering with the schools to cultivate a climate literate generation through hands-on youth-led action. So with support from UNICEF, 77 schools are now collaborating directly with Botanic Gardens, reaching over 25,000 children in 2025 alone. And this initiative has become more than a teaching program. It's a platform for empowerment and climate resilience that the government has noticed and is underway to national scale up. A key challenge, and it's something that has been mentioned before in the days that we have shared together and through many of you, is that in many regions in Tanzania, it's not just about planting trees, it's about planting the right trees in existing soil conditions and that are beneficial for the local ecosystems and biodiversity there. Poor soil health, unpredictable rainfall, and local ecological factors make traditional gardening difficult and challenging for just school teachers and children to do this. So this is where the expertise of Botanic Gardens come into play for the success of the initiative. The knowledge of the staff about native plant species, propagation techniques, and soil plant compatibility equips schools with tailored science-based guidance. So through these partnerships, students are learning to germinate and propagate native plants, restoring biodiversity with species suited to their local ecosystems. They are learning about planting and maintaining edible gardens, which both teach ecological principles and improve food security. And they are learning to restore habitats using pollinator-friendly plants, linking biodiversity conservation with tangible climate adaptation. So these are not just theoretical lessons. They are grounded, joyful, transformative, and build real skills. So we see what happens when gardens become classrooms and students become stewards in their own land. The result is a new kind of education, rooted in science, grown through community, led by children, and now taken up by government. So this is a successful school-based partnership, and it's leading a model of national transformation. These programs have significantly improved opportunities for children and youth to develop practical skills for climate adaptation and food security. And what began in 77 schools now is the basis for this national plan for scale up, driven by the strong demand from both students and educators. So at the heart of this effort are these school climate clubs, where sustainability is not an occasional lesson, but is woven into the daily fabric of school life. Students are growing food, managing compost, understanding biodiversity, and leading their peers in local adaptation projects. Those clubs are not only teaching critical skills, they are laying the groundwork for long-term climate resilience, equipping young people to lead change in their homes, schools, and communities. And it is through these living laboratories that are schools, that are botanic gardens, where learning begins to transform not just what children know, but what they do, empowering children and the future generation to care for their environment and secure a more sustainable future for all. So this is one example of the before and after of one school where we're working in Tanzania. So you can imagine how difficult it would be to create green coverage and plant new trees without the input and support from the local botanic gardens. And you can see the now photo and the huge transformation. And I unfortunately don't have the thermal photo, but it's also dramatic how the temperature is lowered when schools are surrounded by greenery and native plants. So in wrapping up, some recommendations. So what the stories that I share today have in common is that they go beyond traditional environmental education. They unlock green skills training. They integrate with national education systems. They ensure that climate learning doesn't sit on the margins, but becomes a part of how young people grow and learn. They enhance accessibility, bringing climate action opportunities into communities and making botanic gardens more inclusive spaces for learning. And perhaps most importantly, they foster partnerships for scale between education ministries, civil society, and local innovators. Yet, in preparing for this talk, one theme stood out, and is how rare it is to find institutionalized youth leadership in the botanic garden sector. This is one of the most critical ingredients for success, but unfortunately the least common. In fact, only until a couple days ago, I ran into a colleague here from Kew Gardens. I think she's there, Polly. And she was telling me how at Kew Gardens, bringing youth into decision-making spaces and to institutionalize youth leadership for decision-making at Kew is a priority that they are working towards now. We need more of this, because the role of youth in climate adaptation must shift from being seen as vulnerable recipients to being recognized as enablers of change. As researchers and practitioners have highlighted, young people need platforms for meaningful participation. They need climate education, decision-making power, mentorship, and funding for implementing their ideas. They also need access to intergenerational knowledge and support to lead innovations, both technological and social innovations that are tailored to their communities. This is our call to action from UNICEF and from my own organization, PlanetWise, to create enabling environments where youth-led climate adaptation becomes the norm, not the exception. where botanic gardens are not just classrooms, but launchpads for leadership, where every young person has the tools, trust, and opportunities to shape a climate-resilient future. So some final thoughts to wrap it up for today. As we come to the end of this journey of my presentation today, one thing is clear to me, and is botanic gardens are more than just plant collections. They are bridges between generations, between science and community, between the urgency of today's climate challenges and the promise of tomorrow's leadership. They can inspire, mentor, and transfer expertise in ways that schools often cannot. They offer space, not just physical space, but intellectual, emotional, and creative space for young people to experiment, to fail, to innovate, and to lead. And it's time we unleash that potential at scale. We need to engage youth in multi-level adaptation efforts. That means encouraging youth quotas in community committees in your institutions, offering internships with national and regional adaptation projects, providing coaching in leadership and project management, supporting the creation of youth networks, fostering social entrepreneurship and climate innovation, capturing and sharing lessons of what works and sharing in these spaces where we are today. But above all, we must ensure youth participation is meaningful, not symbolic, not performative, but systemic, strategic, and sustained. That means, and I encourage you to do that in all of your institutions, mapping youth stakeholders from the start, creating channels for young people to express what they want to change so that they have true opportunities to lead change, facilitating dialogue across generations, and opening doors to decision-making spaces and giving them the keys. Because the future we are working for won't be built for youth. It must be built with them, with young people. Botanic gardens have the potential to become beacons of hope and hubs of transformation. If we commit to this path, we will not only grow trees, we will grow leaders, and that's urgently needed. So let's cultivate young voices, not just for the future, but for today. Thank you.
Dr. Ingrid Sanchez TAPIA, thank you for your valuable plenary presentation. I believe that botanical gardens are ideal places for climate care, where we can prevent or adapt to the emotional challenges brought by climate changes. I was deeply inspired by how many young people are participating in these programs through creative and technical resolutions. Thank you, Dr. Tapia. Are there any questions from the floor? Please raise your hands. Feel free to ask any question.
Thank you very much. Very good talk. I just have a quick question. So when you have this a program for the youth, for the children, so do you think if they have these programs together with their parents, that's easier? Or it's the children themselves, it's easier? Or it's more easy for their communication and therefore their education? So the parents' role, are there, what do you think? What's the suggestions?
Well, thank you. That's an excellent question. So botanic gardens can also play an important role in engaging parents for reaching the youngest learners. And often the youngest learners are the messengers of change, motivate parents to change their day-to-day practices at home, to visit the botanic garden more often. And there are botanic gardens around the world where they also offer workshops on parenting, positive parenting. So then you are embedding sustainability, biodiversity, plant conservation, but they are also offering tools for parents to better interact with their children and to feel more confident. And for young people, what we have seen and what research say is they often need to feel agentic. So while parents need to be abreast of what's happening with their children, where they are, what they are learning, it's important for them to have the space to co-create with peers and to feel that they are leading. So the different roles of engaging parents change through the different ages, but it's very important and is one important tool for engaging community in the work of botanic gardens and for expanding the outreach of your education programs.
Anyone?
I saw two hands.
Yes.
Thank you so much for the insightful presentation. I am Harriet from Uganda. My question is, how would we include children who have no access to education and we notice and accept that climate change is for all of us? How would we best bring these children to learn in these platforms? Thank you so much.
Thank you for this question. So I think a few of the examples that I presented today illustrate precisely that. And is although sometimes there are funding challenges, there's much value in the staff of botanic gardens to go out into the communities, especially in areas where young people, children, have limited to no access to education, not even quality education, but education at all. And designing such programs needs to be intentional. It cannot be just taking the guides or the workshops that you do at the botanic garden, because it won't necessarily be relevant for kids who are not schooled, who are facing lack of services, poverty. So the goal and the idea is to engage with the communities, with young people that you're trying to reach, to design relevant education experiences that are going to support many local goals for climate adaptation and sustainability, and that translate in some cases to better food security and to climate resilience that protect them better from climate events. So taking that step, going out into the communities, designing with them, engaging young people, is going to be key for reaching that population.
Next.
There was one other question.
Yes,
Okay.
Thank you for your presentation. I feel very honored to be in the same room as someone who has achieved so much. I would like to ask a question about whether we should also teach the children about the role of the government and people in power in climate change, because there are so many things that we can do as individuals without much power in governance and influence. So should there be also a pressure on people in power who also have a lot of effect on the climate change? Thank you. Also, I'm from Korea University, Sima. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question. So botanic gardens can do it all. Same as schools can do it all, but that's the power of partnerships. So it is very important, and you have raised a good point, especially as children grow up, that they learn how to navigate effecting change in their communities, in their countries, and globally. So they need to understand what are the pathways in terms of participation, legislation, policy change in their communities, in their countries, so that their collective action, their ideas, actually affect change in a sustainable manner. And it's not only about changing a policy, but allocating budget to those policies so that change, action, actually happens, so that it's codified and budgeted. This varies across countries, but this is normally not core part of formal education. So if programs can integrate those aspects or can partner with organizations that do that, it's highly desirable. There are free online courses designed for youth on these very topics. You can access courses from UNFCCC right now for all the youth delegates who will be attending, or are attending this week and next week, the climate conversations at Bonn. If you want to better understand what's going on, you can access those free online courses designed for youth, for, again, UNFCCC, UNICEF, UNITAR. So there's a lot of material out there that you can, and it's all open source, as my colleague Shabazz from UNESCO was mentioning during the first day, that you can take, you can adapt, you can use, and I encourage you all to do that.
Thank you. Time is limited, so it would be a last question, maybe?
Thank you. Thank you, Ingrid, for articulating that so clearly as to why it's so important to integrate youth voice and to promote youth voice. And also thank you for mentioning the work we're doing at Kew. I'm Polly Gifford from Kew Gardens. And this is really an offer as much as a question. One of the main things that one of the journeys we had to go on to establish the Youth Council at Kew was how to present this back to our own organisation and to make the case internally as to why this was a really important step. We did quite a lot of research and really interested in connecting to other organisations to share some of that experience and to how to make this case and persuade executive boards, boards of trustees in organisations that this actually is a really positive and vital step. So I'd love to connect with anyone who is interested in taking this journey.
Thank you, Polly. And this is the power of being here together, learning from each other, exchanging experiences. So that's not easy work, so kudos to Kew. But it needs to happen. So I encourage you to reach out, also learn about these experiences happening all over the world, many led by UNICEF, where youth are meaningfully taking leadership and engaging in decision making. It is key. So if that's the last question, I hand over to you.
Yes. Yes. That's it. We are truly grateful for your time and the insight that you have shared with us today. Please, a big round of applause once again.